Morning. Welcome back to Small Talk with Mark S. Lee, brought to you by Domino's. Yes, in this brand new year, it's kind of like that brand new toy you got under the Christmas tree last month. You just want to open it and play with it for a little bit. And then all of a sudden say, oh my goodness, that brand new toy has turned old. We hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. And we're going to continue the conversation in 2019 with Mr. Greg Packer. He's with Access Point here in the Motor City area. And recently, here in the state of Michigan, a law was passed. There was a passed law legalizing marijuana, correct?
That's correct. It was.
Yep. And so we're going to spend some time chatting about that. So, Greg, good morning, and thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate the opportunity.
And Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Now, did your favorite team win in any of the bowl games?
I'm not sure any team in Michigan won the bowl games this year.
Did your favorite NFL team win?
Nope.
Said. All right. But seriously, we're going to have an interesting and outstanding conversation here because this is important because there's some confusion, I think, as it relates to this marijuana policy when it comes to jobs and in terms of employers and what their policies might be. So we're going to spend some time unpacking that. So when we talk about the marijuana policy, what is one way that employers can avoid confusion related to this new policy that was passed back in November?
Well, I'm not sure it's possible to completely avoid confusion. There's confusion all about it, but it's important to note that number one, marijuana, cannabis, is still illegal at the federal level. So a lot of employers have regulations that relate to transportation and things like that that are governed at a federal level. So they have to be sensitive to that. But the bigger issue is just how much is tolerable. And I think employers have to make some decisions as to how they want their policies to be interpreted because it's a very tough labor market out there right now, and I think people are not wanting to exclude people who are otherwise able-bodied employees.
So there was a lot of discussion late last year, right after Michigan passed the law. It's not like you just go out and buy this now, right? You have to go. You can't. It's not like buying alcohol. You can't walk into a store and buy a bottle of liquor and walk out with it.
Well, some of the interesting and confusing elements of it is that the ballot initiative passes the law just like they did with medical several years ago, but then the state has to sort of flesh out the rules and regulations of how that actually happens. So I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert on this, but I believe that as of yesterday, it's legal to have recreational amounts, but it's not legal to purchase recreational amounts other than through the medical distribution system. And they're going to layer into that medical distribution system an ability to buy recreational products as well.
So, and just as with alcohol that you may purchase, for example, you can't go to work drunk. You can't drive drunk. So I think there are a lot of people, all of a sudden I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy this and start using the product. And the company's going to understand that in fact is not the case at all. That's correct.
I think the best way to think about it is very much like alcohol, and to some degree, prescription drugs. It's no longer illegal to have it or have it in your system necessarily, but it's illegal to be inebriated or intoxicated, whatever term you want to use.
And my understanding, too, is that federal law still supersedes state law when it comes to this particular product.
Correct. Anywhere in the United States, it's still illegal. So you could be arrested for having it in your system or on your possession. But it's pretty clear, actually in Washington, D.C., where we have an office as well, it's legal at the district level, and you have, the DEA is housed there. So I've posed the question, what happens if a bunch of DEA guys are having lunch at the table next to you?
Yeah.
And pretty much the standard procedure anyways is that they ignore it as long as you aren't on federal land.
We're talking to Greg Packer. He's with Access Point. And for our listeners locally as well as nationally, briefly give us an overview of Access Point.
So basically, Access Point functions as an off-site human resources management department. We handle all the ins and outs of employment-related compliance for our clients.
Good.
Typically smaller employers, 10 to 50 or so employees.
And we invited him in today because we want to talk about this new marijuana bill that was passed, legalization of marijuana here in the state of Michigan, and try to clear up, some of the misperceptions as it relates to jobs and corporate policy. So, it's early in the year. It's relatively, it's brand new. We got a new administration in Lansing now. They just took place this past week as well. So, a lot of people I think want to have a little bit of clarification about this. So, as you're working in the HR space essentially. So, how would you articulate this policy to your staff? So, I'm listening this morning. I have a team of employees, whether it's with a large organization or a small group of individuals or a group of employees. How would you articulate that policy to them directly? What would you say to them?
Well, I think before you actually articulate the policy, you have to, as a management team, have to decide what you want the policy to be. How do you want to handle it? And one of the most confusing things is that because cannabis has been illegal under the eyes of the judicial system, it's been zero tolerance. So if you have any THC in your system, you were considered to be in violation of the law. But now people might be, employers might say, well, we're okay but it stays in your system so much longer. It's not like alcohol that metabolizes in a few hours. Somebody could have a fun New Year's Eve celebration and be going to work today, almost 48 hours later, and still have THC in their system, even though it's not active, it's not affecting them. So the policy has to contemplate how you're going to handle that. The courts and the legislature has not decided on sort of an acceptable level. Like with alcohol, it's 0.008 defines intoxication. But if somebody is unable to perform, they're exhibiting symptoms, that's typically the way to address the policy. We've helped develop those kinds of policies for our clients, and it's focusing on their capacity to do their job.
And so, when we talked about the marijuana situation before, it was more so medicinal purposes, right?
Correct.
I mean, if you got a physical challenge and people might use the product to help to alleviate the pain, for example. Now we're saying it's been legalized for recreational use, right? So we want to make sure that if you're listening, I like to tell the story, if you're out on a night on a town, like you said, we just had New Year's celebrations recently, and hopefully I hope you all were safe and were smart on this past holiday season. But people encourage you, don't drink and drive. And certainly if you've been drinking, you don't go to work. If you show up to work and you've had one too many, you're inebriated, dope, the chances are, you do a great job and you've been doing it for a long time. But if you walked into your job that way, there are certainly some consequences associated with that. And I think same thing here, potentially. Again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a human resources person. What we're saying is you don't go to work with this, don't go to work high. Essentially.
Exactly.
You just use your common sense, and while it's recreational use, it doesn't mean that you can start, smoking joints, driving up the expressway, and then go straight to work.
Well, just like with Vicodin, you can't show up to work unable to perform your job because you're on prescription drugs either. Yeah.
So with that as a backdrop, then, so we know that organizations have been doing drug testing. Doing drug testing for years. Can they still drug test their employees for products like this in the system?
Absolutely. If you have a tried and true policy, you can continue that policy. What we're seeing a lot of is more employers who want to sort of relax that policy a little bit, again, because it's hard to find people. So, right now there's likely to be an increase in use of cannabis products. So that's more people who are testing positive. So when they are drug tested for a new job, more likely to test positive. And then the confusion that ensues is that these candidates think, well, it's legal now.
Right.
Why is this preventing me from being employed? And some employers feel the same way. So it's having a responsible policy. Obviously, people who are operating heavy equipment, machinery, handling children, working in schools, it's got to be much stricter.
I wouldn't want somebody taking care of my kids if they had a buzz.
Sometimes you need it after taking care of the kids, but not before.
Yeah, right. Which leads me to the next approach here, the next conversation about the zero tolerance policy. Is that the right way? Is that the right policies that should be adopted by employers, the zero tolerance when it comes to this product in the workforce?
To be honest with you, Mark, I think it's still too early to say precisely what should be the policy. I think every employer has to decide what their game plan is. There's, again, zero tolerance means anything's in your system and, you're out.
Yeah.
But you can have THC active in your system and no longer have it having any effect on you. It's not like alcohol. If alcohol is active in your system, it's still affecting you. Once it metabolizes and is gone, and it happens in 6 or 7 hours. So you can go out and really tie one on, and you might be hungover, but you're not under the influence necessarily the next day.
How does this relate to medical marijuana users? Should they be exempt from any zero tolerance policy?
Oh, it would be the same thing. So if somebody, and we've been dealing with that, since the medical marijuana issue passed as well, in that, if we are testing on behalf of one of our clients and somebody tests positive, it doesn't really matter whether it's medical or non-medical. It's the same cannabis. It's the same product. It has the same effect.
I'm just kind of curious. Is the state or any type of the major organizations, has anyone, based on your knowledge, maybe the answer is no, have they created a policy, like a framework that other organizations could use as they begin to roll this out across their organizations in 2019?
Certainly nothing that I've seen. I think, again, the biggest thing is defining what is a level of intoxication based upon the use of cannabis. So, alcohol was around for a long, long time before we defined a legal level of intoxication and began, prosecuting people for that.
As we talk about alcohol and we talk about, other issues and challenges out there, many people have different types of convictions, right? You have a DUI, you can have some type of convictions in your background, whatever. So with that as a backdrop, how should employers look at marijuana-related convictions as it relates to the new law?
Well, I mean, it was against the law when the people violated the law, so I think it becomes a character issue. So if people were willing to break the law, then you have to discern whether or not that's the type of character you want within your organization. Those convictions aren't going to go away just because it's now a legal product.
Yeah.
So it's a very complex issue for employers to figure out exactly what their objectives are.
About a minute or so together remaining, do you find your clients or you in particular, your business, we're talking to Greg Packard from Access Point, are you getting a lot of questions in terms of what do we do at this point? Is there a lot of, or is it getting better?
We are. The questions we're getting are, how should we, change our policies? So we've been working on language to change the handbook policies for our clients.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, on the hiring process, a big part of our business is also recruiting employees for our clients and assisting with that process. And it's, should we be testing any longer? So again, it's, what are your goals and objectives? We can still test and let them know, and they can make a decision and how they want to handle it.
I guess I'm just from the old school. The old school, when I worked in corporate, I never even thought about even drug testing. I never even thought about having, drugs in my system, or alcohol for that matter. Again, if you're listening, I don't do that anyway. I'm just simply saying you went in for the interview and you hope to get the job. And we know that drug testing is out there for obviously for all the right reasons. But it just shows you how times have changed, Greg.
It does.
Yeah. For more information in closing, where can people get more information about Access Point and the other services that you may offer?
Well, our website is www.apteam.com. So it's Access Point Team, so apteam.com.
This conversation will continue in 2019. This is a big challenge with the state of Michigan passing the law back in November. So make sure you keep your eyes and ears tuned to this so that you understand what the latest policies are inside your company as well as across the state of Michigan. Greg Packard, thank you very much for coming again. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year as well. There'll be more guests at this commercial break on Small Talk with Mark S.